Welcome into another episode of Everything is Logistics, a podcast for the thinkers in freight. I am your host, Blythe Milligan, and we are proudly presented by SPI Logistics. And in this show, I want to have more of a different type of episode for this. Number one, I am fresh off Manifest, and if you've ever been to Manifest, the Future of Supply Chain and Logistics, held in Las Vegas around January, February time frame for each of the last 4 years, then you know how long it can take to recover from this particular conference. And it's not necessarily like, being in Vegas, that definitely helps. I think also it's getting older, getting up there in age, but it takes a long time to recover from this damn conference. And so I am recording this, about 5 days later than what I originally planned. I had ambitious goals of recording this content in the airport on the way back home. No, instead, I spent it trying to catch up on some much needed sleep from the conference because it's just so impactful in more ways than one. More than 6,000 people that attended, dozens and dozens of companies, and it was held in the Venetian. And so if you've never been to this conference, this is a conference that I will never miss. I've gone to it every single year since its inception, and it's doubled in size, both in the people that attend and then also the square footage of the expo floor, which is just a sight to be seen. I often have mentioned on this show and in previous, manifest focused episodes that it was the first place that I walked into and could see the entire logistics process under one roof. So warehousing, maritime, obviously truckload, all of these different facets, technology, service providers under one roof. And it was a big inspiration of why I wanted to start this show, start this podcast. And so this really feels like sort of a great episode to give sort of my quick hitters on the main takeaways of what I got from the show, things that are in motion, things that are happening. And then a new thing, what I did this year, is I also took solicitations from other companies that were going to be at the event. And so what I mean by that is, if you're listed as a podcast or a creator or any kind of media person in the Manifest app, what they have is this just insane level of networking prior to the show taking place or prior to the event taking place. So me as a podcaster, and I'm sure other creators in speaking with other creators, they experience this as well, where you are added to the Manifest app, you get access to it a few weeks in advance. And so you can kind of start plotting out like who you want to meet with, the sessions you want to go to, things like that. But if you're on the media side of things, you also have your email sort of opened up to every single sponsor that is part of Manifest, and it's both daunting and incredibly rewarding because you have to sort of navigate these waters of just filtering through information and figuring out where you need to spend your time. Another thing with Manifest is that you have to prioritize who you're going to meet with and why. And because of the previous experience of going to all of the other previous Manifest events, what I wanted to do this year is figure out a way that I can incorporate companies that send me all of these press releases without having to, have the bandwidth to interview them and talk to them for, a lengthy amount of time. Any listener to this show knows that all of our interviews are at least 30 minutes long. And so if you do the math and you're getting, I would say probably a dozen requests every single day from the time the Manifest app opens until damn near the start of the event, you're getting press releases from all different corners of the logistics world. And as one person, I cannot keep up with all of it. So my idea for this year was for everybody that I couldn't do a long form interview with, I wanted them, a member of their team, a subject matter expert, to submit a video, anywhere from 1 minute to 3 minutes long, or a quote. Submit them to me, and then I will feature the best ones on a Manifest episode recap. And so this allowed me to have these subject matter experts share exactly what they're thinking and what they're seeing right from the expo floor, and being able to share that with all of y'all. So I'll share a little bit more about that. Well, I guess I should just talk about it right now. So let's, I, I'm the host, so I can make these decisions. And so for, a lot of these, I have one, two, three, four, five. I have several. 9, sorry, I had to count again because my eyes, again, getting older. Uh, 9 videos that were submitted, and I'm currently in the process of uploading those to our YouTube channel. Technically, YouTube will treat these videos as shorts because they just recently changed a rule where it used to be a short, which is, very like TikTok style videos, had to be 59 seconds or less. Don't you dare make it a full minute because they're not going to show it under the shorts tab. Shorts are being heavily featured and promoted on the YouTube platform, either to your enjoyment or to your dismay. But because these videos are short form format, they are going to appear in shorts because now recently YouTube changed that rule where you can post videos up to 3 minutes long and they appear in the shorts tab. So typically, like vertical style videos, and then you can add them to YouTube, and YouTube will determine if it's under 3 minutes, then they will automatically qualify that as a short. Getting some pretty good responses on a lot of our shorts lately that come from previous episodes. So I'm curious to see what these sort of like one take videos and how they perform. But I felt that it was a better way to showcase some of the conversations and some of the thought process that are happening in and around the expo floor without having to use the bandwidth to interview each one of these people, because that would, if I take it a step further, I another aspect of the Manifest conference that I thoroughly enjoy and I thoroughly love. If you listen to our recent interview with Courtney Muller, who's the president over at Manifest, they have a podcast booth, and so for the podcasters and the creators, they allow you, a certain amount of time on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday of the conference in order to have the podcast booth where you can tell other people that you want to interview, hey, show up here and we can have a conversation. They usually have, like a table, a nice little area. Maersk sponsors it, which is fantastic. I think they've been the sponsor the entire time. So for this year, they had not one, but two podcast studios right next to each other. And so I was able to take advantage of 3 hours on the first day of Manifest. And the way that I structured these interviews, which will be posted to the channel soon. They're currently being edited. It's a lot of files to be edited. But the way I structured them is over 3 hours. What I would do is I had somebody show up from, like, let's say 12 to 3 is the time that I have the podcast studio. And so during that time frame, it was like 12 to 12:25, 12:30 to 12:55, 1 o'clock to 1:25, and so on and so forth. And that way, all of the equipment is already set up. I'm just ushering in the guests here and coming in and going out, quick introductions, quick setup, and then we can just like hop right to it and start the discussion. So shout out to Manifest for having this space and having this, a place for podcasters and journalists and other creators within logistics to really feel like they have a professional home. I can't tell you how many conferences that I've gone to where I'm trying to finagle a spot in, like, the hotel lobby and trying to find a good spot with good lighting, that, can make for a good conversation, and then you have to factor in that you're probably by yourself doing a lot of these recordings unless you have a big budget where or some kind of funding source where you can bring, an entire tech crew or an entire tech team. It was just me and Lindsay, and if you don't know Lindsay, Lindsay handles a lot of our social media, all of our social media, unless it's like a really personal post on like LinkedIn or Twitter or something. I think you can kind of tell, if they're content based posts like about CargoRex, which I'll get into in just a little bit with some updates there. But if it's like coming from an episode or it's an email newsletter or something like that, Lindsay is the one who really helps and shines in that regards and leads that ship. So it was great to have her there to be sort of my second, pair of eyes and ears, helping to talk with the guests. She also did a fantastic job with like snapping photos and posting those photos to, my personal social media feeds, and then also the Everything is Logistics social media feeds. And so just being able to get that content out quickly, because for me, it was just nonstop with sort of the lay of the land as far as, Manifest is concerned, because I flew in on Sunday. The conference starts technically on Monday. Monday was 6 interviews, moderated a panel. Tuesday comes up, I moderate the official manifest panel. The other panel I moderated was for Vision, which is one of the exclusive sponsors on Monday. And what's great about the panels on Monday, which I'll get into in just a second with some of the details on some of those interviews and conversations, but what's great about the Monday panel is that the expo floor isn't open. The expo floor opens Tuesdays and Wednesdays of the event. A lot of people don't know that. And a lot of people showed up to manifest thinking that they would, hit the expo floor on Monday and Tuesday. Come to find out that, their flight leaves halfway through Tuesday and then they can barely see the incredible expo floor. So if you plan to go to Manifest in the future, make sure that you are in town for all 3 of those days, but especially Tuesday and Wednesday if you want to see the expo floor because it doesn't open until Tuesday. But Monday, because the expo floor wasn't open, there were panels that were taking place. And one of those was the Women Shaping the Future of Supply Chain, sponsored by Vision. And it's hosted at Manifest. And so I moderated that panel, and there were 4 other women on that panel. Friend of the show, Grace Sharkey, was one of those panelists. And we got to speak directly to these women to find out, not necessarily from a okay, you're, just, what's it like being a woman working in logistics, which of course, yeah, that's the undertone of the conversation. But what we focus the panel on is the achievements of these people that also happen to be women. And I think that that was my favorite way of framing the discussion, not that these people are getting the recognition because they're women, but because they've worked their asses off and they've gotten to the top and they've dealt with a lot of, bullshit along the way, pardon my French. But they've dealt with a lot of BS along the way, and they still succeeded and they still thrive and they're still thriving to this day. The audience was packed out. And I think it was obviously the topic was, something that resonated with a lot of people there, men and women alike. But I think it was also very helpful to not have to compete with a giant expo floor that is insanely impressive. And so that panel was standing room only. Fantastic to see. I have some photos posted up on LinkedIn and then also my Instagram at Blythe Brum if you want to go check that out. But that panel was fantastic. We have a copy of that file, and we're going to release it on the podcast, of course, like we've done with previous Manifest, episodes. So that one I'm excited to share. And one of the key takeaways that I remember from that particular episode or from that particular panel is talking about the geographic challenges. So, 2 of the women on the panel were from Google, formerly worked at Google. One of them now works at Uber Freight. One of them now works at a company called Dexery. We've actually had Dexery Owana Jinga on a show in the past. So go search everything as logistics to find that conversation because she is a gem. Also, got an awesome new palette post-it from Dexery. So shout out to them because there aren't many booth giveaways that I love, but I love palette Post-its. And that's that one thing that I will make sure that I get at every conference because I use them so much. If you looked at my desk right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, I have 4 of these Post-its just on my desk right now. They also, in case you're watching, or listening. In case you're listening, I have showed this off before on my socials, but this is what a Dexery robot looks like that's inside the warehouse. And they had one of these, a real one, not the Lego version. They did offer me the Lego version, but I told them I already had one and I already built it. But if you notice all of these little sensors here on the robot itself, this is the world's tallest warehouse robotic. And all of these little sensors have cameras on them. And so what they're used for is for accurate inventory counts. So that was another cool person, just a little side note. And then also we had Rachel Levy from Brooklinen. She was also on the panel as well. And then with Uber Freight, we had Natalie that was on from Uber Freight. And then Grace Sharkey, of course, from FreightWave/Firecrown Media. And one of the questions that was answered by the women who, especially from Rachel, with Brooklyn, and I mean, they're a global company. And she talks about being in the room with other supply chain folks, other supply chain managers from all across the globe. And I think obviously there's a lot to be said about what's going on in the country, whether you love it or you hate it, but there are significant situations that affect women in this country, but also affect them a little bit more in other countries. You can say, oh, I want a seat at the table, things like that, and you can largely get that opportunity in the United States. But if you go to some of these other countries that aren't used to speaking or working with women in that regard, that creates a very unique set of circumstances that you have to navigate. And these women talked about working through that. And I thought that was a fascinating discussion. Again, highlighting the achievements of these people that also happen to be women, not necessarily featuring them only because they're a woman. And so, because we framed the discussion like that, and shout out to Sammy Amons from over at Vision. She really spearheaded this discussion and organized a lot of this panel. But this was her thought concept, and that she really wanted to focus on that area, and it really rang true. And a lot of women and men in the audience really appreciated that. And from what I understand, it was one of the highest rated panels in the entire conference. So thank you to everyone that showed up and listened to that discussion. If you did miss it, it will be on a future episode of Everything is Logistics. So we will be sure to share those again in the future. There's a couple of other notes that I wanted to sort of give as far as takeaways for the conference. And I would say one of the bigger ones is just how many companies have just added the word AI to their offerings. And you don't really know if it's AI or if it's just, the evolved phrase of machine learning turning into AI. So that was interesting to try to sort through, like, who is actually doing artificial intelligence, and then who is just has been using machine learning for a while and then just reframing it as AI, which I don't know that there's necessarily a problem with that, but it feels a little, like, I don't wanna say gimmicky, but it might be gimmicky. And that was one of my first takeaways, is just how much AI has dominated the conversation. I even moderated a panel on, in the age of AI, how do you handle data security? That was my second day panel, my Tuesday morning panel. And so we were on, or I moderated that panel with the CTO of Honeywell, and then also with the CEO of Clio, and then also, I think he was the VP of sales from Crisp. So two logistics companies and a shipper. And then it was me moderating that discussion on the data security aspect when you have so many different players and tech stacks, and everybody's offering AI. But how do you make sure that your data, your sensitive company proprietary data, stays sensitive, stays, proprietary to you and your organization? And there were a bunch of different strategies that Clio and Crisp and Honeywell all implement, and there were a lot of really great tips and takeaways from that discussion. Got a lot of good feedback from that as well. So I will be sharing that conversation in the very near future, hopefully by the end of the month, for both of those conversations. And then from the interview perspective, oh my gosh. So we had conversations with Highway, we had conversations with Overhaul, we had conversations with Caleris, Kevin from the New Warehouse podcast. That is for, oh, Geopost codes. Oh, that was another really, really interesting one. So Geopost codes, and then also Roger Boza from Clone Ops. So Clone Ops, brand new sponsor of the podcast. Can't wait for them to come up on and I guess come to the Everything is Logistics sort of landscape. You'll start to see them in our email newsletters, across social media. And then we got a couple interviews coming. One of them was with Roger Boza, and then we also have an interview with their CEO, David Bell. They are from David Bell, you might know from Lean Staffing and Solutions fame. But what they are building is really fascinating. And it's, I sort of badmouth, are the companies that are just changing, machine learning into AI. And, is it a marketing gimmick or not? Well, CloneOps is not doing that. They're actually building clones, literally that's in the name. They're building clones of yourself. And one of the things that, in order to carry out, specific tasks. So it's not just, handling phone calls and admin tasks and things like that. But it's also giving the ability to clone yourself, not just for like in-house brokers or things like that, but also for drivers, which I thought was really interesting and a really interesting play because for a lot of drivers, the sentiment that I see online is that they're very apprehensive to more technology, more tracking, more invasion of privacy, things like that. But they're also tired, with many of us, tired of dealing with BS admin tasks that take up a lot of time. They're making check calls, answering check calls. They frankly don't really want to do it. So this is the first that I've heard with CloneOps offering a solution of AI solution that can help drivers avoid some of those annoying tasks that they have to do while out on the road. I think there's also, some really cool from what David was saying. He was saying that there's also some really cool translation opportunities there as well. So what you have is, drivers who may speak another language or brokers who may speak another language. Then you have this ability for them to communicate in their native language. So then that way, nothing is really lost in the translation or lost in conversation. And I thought that that was really exciting as well. And so we'll have more content from the Clone Ops team coming in the future. But I thought you should just know about the 6 interviews that we did record, especially Reed Clements over at Highway. I've been trying to get Highway on the show for a couple years now. We're finally able to make it happen in Manifest, which is fantastic. I mentioned geo postcodes, which it was a really interesting. I never really thought about how you need different location data for anywhere in the ocean. I just thought sort of latitude longitude is good enough, but from what Simon, who's the CEO over at Geo Postcodes, was saying is that, so say for example, there's a town in Belgium that has one specific name, but then in English, it has another name, but they both mean the same thing. So if you're doing maybe a Google Maps search, or you're trying to find a different location, or trying to find that location, and you enter in the English version of that city, how are you going to be? How is that data going to be able to recognize that you actually mean the Belgium way of spelling it instead of the English way of spelling it? And so what GeoPostcodes has done for more than 15 years now is that they've aggregated a lot of that data, all of these different data sources, and then they sell that data, that location data, as a package. So to help folks with their, location accuracy, port terminal locations, things like that. And that freaking logistics, right? It's just the more layers you peel back, the more there is left to learn. I would have assumed that GPS or latitude, longitude, either of those two mechanisms would have been perfect to figure out where, a place is located. I had no idea that this service was even in need, but it's really, really cool to learn about something like that and then be able to, share it with you guys. So I got that conversation coming. Kevin Lawton, I mentioned with New Warehouse Podcast, he was great because if you were anywhere near the Manifest Expo floor, you saw how many damn robotics are everywhere, everywhere. And so we were able to have a lengthy discussion on sort of the state of robotics inside the warehouse. And that was another one of my related, I guess, sort of big takeaways, is that for with speaking with Kevin, more than 90% of US based warehouses do not have any form of robotics. But if you pay attention to sort of logistics news and, funding rounds and things like that, robotics companies have been getting funded left and right for years. But when you hear that more than 90% of them do not have any kind of robotics, that's a massive market opportunity. So it makes sense that we would see all of these different robotic solutions out on that expo floor. Now, the problem with a lot of that adoption is that it's very expensive. And then you also have to navigate the employee relationship because naturally, that this is with a previous conversation with Six River Systems, which is another robotics company. I believe Amazon bought them out. But they mentioned that anytime that they outfit a new warehouse with robotics, they have specialized training that helps employees see the robots as their friends, as a helper, instead of seeing it as something that's going to take your job. So with robotics, there's a very like specific onboarding experience that has to take place in order for the workers at that warehouse to welcome their robot overlords. But in the instances that I saw, and if you might remember a previous episode with Gather AI, there are other ways that you can implement robotics into your warehouse without it having the perception of taking human jobs. One of those ways, like with Gather AI or another company called Corvus, with a C, they have what's called drone inventory counting. And so it's a looks like a drone that you would buy at Walmart or wherever Temu, wherever you're getting your drones, probably not Temu, but wherever you're getting your drones from. It looked like a very normal drone. It takes photos and it scans up and down. So say you have these racks of warehousing shelf space and you have all of these barcodes with all of these products. Now, a typical work situation would be you would probably have to have, some kind of machinery around there, some kind of a ladder, some kind of a device if a human were to want to count whatever is on those shelves, whatever is inside those boxes. It's a very tedious task. It's not that fun. It's not that interesting. And anytime you have a task like that, it's prone to human error. Now, where this helps, where like Gather AI or Corvus helps, is that these drones work alongside the humans where they are doing the inventory counting. Just literally, they have a base station, 3 or 4 drones that are charged up, ready to go. You deploy one of them, and it goes through and it counts from top to bottom, from left to right. It scans all of the barcodes, sends that data back to your WMS, and then you have more accurate inventory counts without having to worry about your workers, being having, strenuous jobs or getting overworked or probably underpaid as well. And it's also a lower barrier of entry for the more than 90% of warehouses that don't have any kind of robotics. And so you have that, a lower barrier of entry for these warehouses to use a tool that's going to help them not be as much of a burden as far as onboarding and especially investment is concerned. And then the employees within the warehouse are more likely to look at, say a drone like that as a companion versus something that's going to take your job. So I thought that was, really interesting observation out on the X. I mean, obviously it's an interesting observation to me because I'm the one who came up with it, but it's one of those observations that I saw very frequently. There were several warehouse counting drones that were on the expo floor. And so I thought that was a really interesting display of what may be coming for the future of a lot of warehouses that don't necessarily have to be the super expensive pick and pack robotics where you're replacing damn near everyone within the warehouse except for, maybe a couple of engineers. A couple of the last ones, overhaul, highway, of course, I already mentioned them, but overhaul and highway, talking cargo crime, talking fraud prevention, things like that. Lindsay recently, our marketing manager, she recently put out a poll on Everything is Logistics asking what topics that you guys wanted to hear from or hear about more. And freight fraud and the cargo crime was far and away the number one topic. So when I see those polls, when I see those results, I listen because I want to be able to cover the topics that you guys care about. And so 2 out of the 6 interviews are covering those topics. So we got more content coming soon. And then we also have Caleris, which is a visibility platform for shippers and port terminal owners. So that was an interesting conversation as well with Renee Alvarega. And so that does it for the interviews that were featured. Sorry, I had to take a quick sip of something to drink because we are talking. And I thought this was going to be a quicker type show. I need to probably work on, making these a little bit quicker, but I got so much stuff to talk about. So because I want to make this a little bit of a quicker show, I am going to briefly mention some of the takeaways that you can find over on YouTube. I mentioned earlier about the different shorts that companies submitted. So we have videos over there, and I will link to them in the show notes just to make sure that you guys don't miss them and that you can check them out if you're interested. But we have Semantic Visions, we have BlackBerry Radar, which is rad. I love BlackBerry. I begrudgingly switch back in the day for the folks who remember or old enough to remember. BlackBerry made the best phones on the market, and their messaging, where you could just type on your phone and you don't even have to look at your phone. Oh, beautiful! I miss it so much. If BlackBerry wanted to ever come back out with a regular phone, I would love to replace my iPhone with a BlackBerry phone, as long as you still have the full keyboard. But BlackBerry has evolved company-wise into BlackBerry Radar, and so we have a quote from them as well. And when I say quotes for these videos, I asked, what's one key takeaway or trend you're seeing shaping the logistics industry in the coming year? All of these people recorded their videos on the expo floor. I kind of wanted that vibe as, sort of like a tone setter. The energy of an expo floor is just different than, say, if you're sitting in sort of an office. So we will have Semantic Visions, BlackBerry Radar. We also have Tint, Voxel. We have Destia. We have Autotech Ventures. Barack has been on a previous episode. He talks about, sort of the VC landscape and, VC and the relationship to logistics, which is an interesting conversation. Highly recommend going and listening to that previous Everything is Logistics episode. We also have a video from In Orbit. We have the CEO of LVK. Her video, I think, was probably my favorite. And then we also have another video from Ryder talking about their prediction and what they think they're going to see this year. And that's actually humanoid robots in the warehouse is what Ryder is predicting. So catch all of those over on our YouTube channel. Just search for Everything is Logistics and you go to the little shorts tab. You can watch whichever ones you like, or you can click in the show notes to find them much easier. Now, I do have a few different of the text-based. So I wanted everybody to submit a video, but not everybody is comfortable being on video. So I said text is fine too, but I just, it's just tough to display these types of quotes on an environment like this. So what I think we're going to do is what I was going to do is just share my Google Doc and show you guys what these quotes are. But what I think will look better presentation wise is to take these quotes, put it on a nice little Canva graphic. Lindsay's going to hate me for this, but we'll put them on a nice little Canva graphic, and then we will share them in a Twitter/X thread, and then also over on LinkedIn, so you can catch all of them. But for the text-based quotes, we have submissions from A to B. We have Rody. We have, who else do we have? We have 0100. We have ePost Global. Who else do we have? Ambi Robotics. Ambi Robotics, we're leaning into tech and can't wait to continue innovating ways that humans and robots can work together. Probably need to do a show on how, a lot of these robotics companies, how they approach the psychological aspect of training humans to work with robots and vice versa. I think that's a really interesting topic. So I'll mentally have jotted that one down for the future. We also have quotes from Outrider, and then finally we have Panda. So look for all of those. Those are the text-based ones. So you're not going to find them on YouTube Shorts, unfortunately. But what we will do is just make sure that each of these are featured in another way that's slightly more appealing than just me just sharing a Google Doc. But overall, 10 out of 10 show. Like I said, I'm still recovering. Vegas is a monster to attend, and I was actually fairly good this event. Previously, I'd go out every single night. I'd be up, late into the wee hours. It's the thing with Vegas; they pump oxygen into all their casinos, and then you can't find a damn clock anywhere because they don't want you to know what time it is, and they want you to keep going longer than you think you can. I stocked up on so many, liquid IVs and ginger and turmeric, little drink mixes and things like that. And I was still worn out. I still got the conference crud, which is just the congestion and the sneezing and just your body is worn down after thousands and thousands of steps every single day. But we're able to close it out. Manifest Another thing I love about this conference is they always have the best closeout conference, and they wait until the end of the conference in order to have it, and it makes people stick around a little bit longer than they probably would. Typically at, other conferences, they'll have their main party, their main event on the second to last day. And that's because they know most people are probably going to skip the half day of the next day's conference, which is, yeah, typically, if you go into conferences, you know how it goes. But Manifest does it a different way, where they have each day is jam packed, and then they have a concert at the end. The first year they had Ludacris, the second year they had Nelly, the third year they had Neo, and this year they had Flow Rider. Now, for me, when I first heard Flow Rider, I was like, okay, like I get it. Like he has a handful of songs that I like. It'll be fun. When I tell you, this man put on a top 3 performance I have ever seen. He had bottles of champagne out, blasting into the crowd. He made sure that all of the audience felt like they were seen. He gave out a dozen long stem roses. He also had bottles of Patron that him and his team are just pouring shots into people's mouths. And then he's playing great music. And then he also, I don't know if you've seen any of the videos that have been posted to LinkedIn, probably not appropriate for LinkedIn, but he also calls a bunch of people up on stage. He calls girls up at first, and the girls get on stage and they dance and they do their thing. Then he calls guys up on stage and then they dance and they do their thing. Hilarious. Lots of people, a lot of the guys like ripped their shirts off for some reason. One of the craziest moments that I saw was this woman who she had a leg injury, and so she wasn't going to go up on stage, but the Flow Rider team pulled her up, then pulled her scooter, and was wheeling her back and forth on the stage. One of the greatest things I've ever seen. I had no idea what was going on, but just a fantastic experience. And he also got the guys up there. I mentioned that made them feel included as well. The guys, like they did not hold back. They danced their little behinds off. There were some people, especially the girl in the wheelchair. There was also, yeah, separately, not the girl with the scooter at the injured leg. There was another girl in a wheelchair that I don't know. We were theorizing maybe she was a plant or something, but she showed up in a wheelchair and she got down and she danced a lot too up on that stage. So I hope everybody still has their job. I personally did not get up on stage. I have been up on stage plenty of times in my lifetime, but I do that in front of my friends, in front of my girlfriends, and in front of my close knit people, not where there's 40 to probably 100 camera phones that are on you at all times and filming your escapades. So I did not get up on stage, but I do not begrudge anyone for getting up on stage. Our own Gray Sharky got up on stage. She also got a signed shoe, which I don't know how this girl does it. Last year she got Neo's towel. This year she gets freaking a signed shoe from Flow Rida. She's probably just going to, at her house at this point, she needs to just dedicate a section of her house to just the trophies that she gets from Manifest conferences, because she gets all of them. So that was really that was hilarious to see. She got up on stage, but she behaved. So she wasn't like doing anything that's like job threatening or anything. But whew, it was a time. And if you ever have an opportunity to see Flow Rida live, go, because it was such a good concert. Such a, like I said, top 3 all time for me concerts. And I never thought that these words would come out of my mouth, but yet here we are. Another part of that big Monday was we officially launched CargoRex. As if I did not have enough going on with 6 interviews and a panel, I decided to launch a business on the same day. So you might have heard, you might have seen the episode that dropped on that same Monday. CargoRex is off to a fantastic start with more than 1,000 signups in the first week. I think we have close to 340 businesses, all logistics, listed on the site. I believe we also have about 7 or 8 creators, logistics creators. We got to work on that. I am working on that, adding more creators to the site. It's not as automated as I would like it to be. But if you didn't listen to our CargoRex debut episode, please go and listen to that episode to get the full backstory of how this project came to be. But if you didn't listen to that episode, essentially CargoRex is my new venture. Digital Dispatch in the podcast is not going anywhere, but CargoRex is what I am trying to build is the Google search of logistics. If you ever tried to ask Google the difference between a freight broker, a freight agent, or a freight forwarder, it's very confused. It doesn't know the difference. Neither does G2. And so for this platform, I really wanted it to, or I want it to be a platform where we can go deep in logistics and not rely on these massive data platforms like Google, like Bing, like all a G2, a Capterra, all of these different sort of software review sites. I wanted CargoRex to be an informational website. So helping creators get exposure to their content matching the episodes that they're already creating to businesses that are already on the CargoRex website. We're adding dozens of businesses every single day since our launch. And so that it's been going great. However, there are also some technical challenges as well. Anytime you're dealing with a site with this much data, like I have built data heavy sites before, a publicly traded home builder for one, with homes that were in like half a dozen different cities. Talk about, sort of APIs, data. That was a lot. This one is just as much, and we are planning for even more than that kind of, data integration, that kind of data flow. So it's been a challenge since especially getting back because for so long, or especially since the fall, it's really been about getting Cargo Rex to the launch point. Now the launch point has happened, and now I kind of have to figure out, and this is where I'm personally struggling, is like what does normal site work look like daily? So right now for me, I am in there responding to support tickets, user requests. If so for some of our listings that we have on the site, we manually added them. So they do not have a verified owner. My team are technically the verified owners of that listing page. And so now we're running into a couple of different issues where, someone will create their account and then they go and they claim their own business. And then it's not, this is just one, sort of minor tech thing that happened today, but their email wasn't linked automatically to the listing page. And that to me, it's like, it's earth shattering. It shouldn't be earth shattering, but it is because just want things to function properly. And anytime you've launched a tech tool or a SaaS-based tool, these things just happen and it's super annoying. You want everything to work perfectly. But that's also the lesson in launching a business is that you have to launch to learn. And the only way you're going to learn is by just putting it out into the world and then seeing how people interact with the site and then noting what things you should adjust and what things you should change based on the user experience. And so that's what I'm kind of knee deep in right now. But I had so many ideas for this site and I can't wait to show you guys all of them. It's just one of the things that we launched today is it's a premium feature, but it's still really cool. So anybody can create a free account. You can add your business for free. You can also add any kind of logistics events. You can add those for free as well. But we do have additional features on your listing page that you can upgrade and you can take advantage of. One of those is being able to list all of your tech integrations. Maybe you are a TMS and you integrate into, seven other different companies. So we have an integrations tab. And the thing, it's programming is so fascinating because you would think that when we first launched an MVP version of this site, it was just a text box. And I wanted people to just list the companies in a bullet format of all the integration partners that you have. Well, what I learned is that people don't pay attention to formatting as much as I would like them to, or as much as I pay attention to those types of things, just to make it look nice, make your profile, make your listing look nice. So what we had to do was kind of scratch just the regular text box, and instead, what we have now is if you're part of an association or a charity, that's one section, and then another section is your integration partners, and so your integration partners, programming, all you have to do is just type in, the first few words of maybe an integration partner that you have on an association that you're a member of or a fan of. And if the listing is already on the site, which If it's not, we will fix that in the future. But if it is already on the site, it autofills, it auto populates, it shows, it pulls up that, sister listing, and it shows it on your profile. So someone, from a user perspective, if they're doing research, let's use a TMS example. If you're researching a new TMS, you can get a quick snapshot of all of their latest, sort of white papers and news. You can see the associations they're a part of. So maybe you can meet them at a future association related event, or you can check out their integration partners. And if you are already using a certain amount of those companies within your tech stack, then it probably makes more sense from a buyer perspective that you may want to book a call with this company if you're looking to make a shift in your TMS anytime soon. So that's one feature that I'm really pumped about. Another one that I'm super pumped about is that for all of our approved creators, we're going to have more research papers that are going to be coming out in the coming weeks and the coming months. Really, this is going to be a very strong focal point for CargoRex, is having these different research papers that pulls in content from a variety of different creators within logistics. And then we'll be able to pull in all of these different quotes from, going back to the TMS example. Say you have, at least a dozen podcasts that have created an episode on how to what to look for in a new TMS partner. That kind of valuable insight from a variety of people is extremely valuable. And so we're going to be making research papers based on that content so that it can help the buyers in their research journey, so that they can see sort of a too long didn't read in a research paper. And then they can choose if they want to listen and they want to hear more, then they can click on those different shows and go and listen to that specific episode that talks about that specific content. And then in addition to that, then we'll have an expert commentary section where, the people who mainly post on LinkedIn, for example, maybe they don't have a YouTube or a podcast, but they're still, a very insightful creator, or a consultant. Then we'll add them as a creator to the site, and they can submit their commentary, and it'll show up as a comment directly under the post. So it's not, we don't allow for, comments in general, or, things like Google reviews or Facebook reviews or anything like that. Just think those are too gamified, especially in the age of AI, where a lot of those things can just be automated away, and, frankly, just bots. Where I'm taking a slightly different angle in that regard, is that it's going to be commentary from approved creators, which, if you're making content in some shape or form in the industry, there's really no reason why you shouldn't be an approved creator. So if you are one of those creators, or if you have an existing, podcast or YouTube channel and you cover logistics, I want you to submit your information to team@cargorex.io. That way we can create a creative profile for you. We can add any of your content that you're already creating. We can add it to the site. And then the most important thing is that if we have an RSS feed from you, which, if you have a podcast or a YouTube channel, you have an RSS feed. So we can pull in that RSS feed, and any view or listen on that content on the CargoRex site counts towards wherever that show came from. So say, for example, YouTube, you have a YouTube video that covers, going back to the TMS example, if you have a YouTube video covering, the things you want to look out for when you're searching for a new TMS, then that video we would have on CargoRex. And if somebody views that video, that view still counts as if you were watching it on YouTube. So creators, you don't lose any data. You maintain ownership rights of your data. You're just using us as a syndication partner, because we have that content matching algorithm that will match your content to relevant searches that are taking place on the CargoRex site. So if somebody is looking, going back to the TMS example, if somebody is looking for a TMS solution, they'll see all of the business listings, they'll see relevant events, and then they'll also see relevant episodes that covers that particular phrase. And so these are things that we're going to further refine in the coming weeks and in the coming months. But I'm super excited about those particular, profile enhancements, and then also creator enhancements. Those are just launched, this week. And so super pumped about a lot of this. And it's really, it's a nervous thing to launch a new business. I even had on one of my notes right before I left for Manifest, because it was, I wasn't sleeping well. We were trying to get a couple, of these features over the finish line, making sure everything's working properly for launch day when we do go live. Because like I mentioned earlier, my Monday that we went live was fully packed. I wasn't going to be able to stop what I was doing and address any kind of support issues or anything like that. So it was really important to have these things set up in place and tested and making sure they're working properly and functional. But on my little post-it that I mentioned earlier, all it says on this post-it is so nervous. I couldn't think of anything else to write on my little post-it, my little shower thoughts, except for so nervous. And I'm glad I have this little note because it's a reminder of how quickly, things can change in just a little over a week. Now I'm feeling great. The product's out there. We're getting feedback, we're getting user testing, and it's really cool to build something and to see other people gravitate towards it, give compliments to it, sign up for it and use it, and then also give me feedback. And that's the biggest blessing that I could ask for right now is if any of you have yet to sign up for the platform, or maybe you haven't added your business yet or added an event. We have events now live on the CargoRex site too. So any logistics event that's going on, I want you to promote it on CargoRex because we got email newsletters going out. We got, with social media, there's so much opportunity for social media promotion with all of these different companies and commentary and creators and events. I'm really excited. I'm really excited to put this product out in the world and take it from an idea to fruition and then hear the feedback from all of you and then be able to continue to build upon it. So lots of cool stuff. I meant for this episode to be a super quick episode, but here we are about 52 minutes in and I am continuing to blabber on. So I will stop blabbering on and instead I will point you over to the CargoRex website. Please make sure that you are added as even if you don't have a business, add yourself as a user, find relevant content that may be of interest to you. If you see any kind of glitches or anything wrong with site, please tell me because I can't fix it if I don't know about it. And I can only test it myself so many times. It's crazy to be able to look at a site and be like, that looks weird, but you're not exactly sure why it looks weird. And you don't know until someone else can kind of, point it out in front of you as well. So lots of good stuff going on. Also very challenging, of course. But this is why we do it, right? This is why we launch and learn. And so thank you guys for all the support, all the compliments, and all the great feedback. Keep it coming, and I'll have more updates to you soon. I'm gonna do more episodes like this, sort of the solo shows. I can really quick just sit down and hit record and then get these messages out to y'all a little bit faster, especially now that I'm recovered for the most part from Manifest Year 4. So thank you guys again for all of your listenership and your attention, and hope to see you again real soon. Okay, go Jags.